America's future rests in 1,000 dreams inside your hearts. It rests in the message of hope in songs of a man so many young Americans admire, New Jersey's own Bruce Springsteen.
That's Ronald Reagan in 1984, using Bruce Springsteen's biggest hit to fuel his re-election campaign. Only problem? The song wasn't celebrating America, it was tearing it apart. We're breaking down how Springsteen wrote the most misunderstood protest song in rock history, fooled an entire nation, and turned a cry of rage into the ultimate sing-along anthem. Stick around until the end to learn how Bruce finally got the last word. In 1984, Bruce Springsteen released an album that would make him a superstar and spark one of music's greatest controversies. The title track became an instant smash, climbing to number 5 on the charts and selling over 20 million copies. Reagan's campaign heard a patriotic anthem. Bruce was singing about something completely different. These clips come from interviews spanning decades where Bruce finally set the record straight about what really happened. Let's start with what Bruce actually intended, because from day one, this was never about blind patriotism.
That particular song fell into a certain social context. The country had veered to the right, and the Republicans at the time were basically attempting to co-opt anything American.
And that's exactly what happened. But here's what Bruce was actually singing about.
When U.S.A. was a song of rebellion. When I wrote that song, I said, hey, no, it's like that flag, that's mine, too. And that experience is not the same experience that you're talking about and that's being put forth as the American experience. You know, those values aren't particularly the same value.
So Bruce wrote a protest song about Vietnam vets abandoned by their country. The lyrics tell the story of a man who gets in trouble, gets sent to Vietnam, loses his brother at Khe Sanh, comes home to find no jobs available and gets no help from the VA. But here's the genius part. He wrapped it in the most triumphant, fist-pumping rock anthem imaginable. The song originated around 1978 when Springsteen read Ron Kovic's memoir, Born on the 4th of July, in an Arizona drugstore, a searing account of a Marine who came back from Vietnam paralyzed and turned to anti-war activism. That book changed everything. But the real story, even wilder. Bruce and Kovic actually met by chance at the Sunset Marquis Hotel pool in Los Angeles. Bruce tells it best.
I was traveling through Arizona in the late 70s, and I bought a book called Born on the 4th of July by a Vietnam veteran named Ron Kovic. And it was his story about going and coming home to find out that his home wasn't there anymore. We went on to Los Angeles, and I was staying in a little motel, and there was a fellow sitting by his side at a pool in a wheelchair. And I had the book with me, and he said, man, I wrote that book.
He was saying, wow, I wanted to meet you, and I couldn't believe that Springsteen wanted to meet me, and I told him that I hadn't heard his music, that much of his music, and he went out to a Tower Records, and he bought all of his albums for me, and he left them next to the door of my hotel room. That's the truth. And he signed Darkness on the Edge of Town with the statement, if this album can affect you half as much as your book affected me, then I will have done my job.
Bruce connected Kovic with activist Bobby Muller and helped organize a benefit concert for the struggling Vietnam veterans of America in 1981, which became a pivotal moment for the veterans movement. The song came from those experiences, those stories, that anger. But when Bruce took it to the studio with the E Street Band, something unexpected happened. Bruce's earlier work was about big romantic dreams. But by the time he made Born in the U.S.A., something had changed.
When I was writing the Born to Run album, I was kind of interested in writing like bigger than life, you know, bigger than life size, real, very romantic and heroic, I guess. And lately, I guess mainly I've just tried to scale it down to what I feel life size is, you know. My concept of, I think what heroicness has changed quite a bit since those days.
That shift is everything. The Nebraska album was stark, brutal honesty about American life. But Born in the U.S.A., Bruce wanted mass appeal this time. He wrapped those dark Nebraska stories in stadium-sized rock anthems. The album was crafted over 26 months, with Bruce writing over 70 songs and picking just 12. And here's where the genius trap was set. The E Street Band added a massive, triumphant sound to songs about unemployment, abandoned veterans, and broken dreams. If Bruce had undercut the music, people might have understood it better, but it wouldn't have been as satisfying. The song was about a guy coming home from Vietnam, lost and disillusioned, but the music was triumphant. That's what confused people, and that's what made it powerful. September 1984. Bruce's album is dominating the charts. Conservative columnist George Will attended a Springsteen show as a guest of drummer Max Weinberg and completely misread what he saw. Will wrote in the Washington Post that flags get waved at his concerts while he sings songs about hard times, and concluded the songs were punctuated by a grand, cheerful affirmation, "Born in the U.S.A." Will had connections to Reagan's campaign, and the idea got pushed up to high-level advisor Michael Deaver, whose staffers asked if they could use the song. Springsteen politely said no. They did it anyway.
America's future rests in 1,000 dreams inside your hearts. It rests in the message of hope in songs of a man so many young Americans admire, New Jersey's own Bruce Springsteen.
When reporters pressed Reagan's staff about what his favorite Springsteen song was, they stammered and said "Born to Run," proving nobody in that campaign had actually listened to the lyrics. They heard the chorus, saw the flag on the album cover, and figured Bruce was one of them. He absolutely was not. 3 days later, Bruce responded the only way he knew how, on stage in Pittsburgh.
The president was mentioning my name in his speech the other day. I kind of got to wondering what his favorite album must have been. And I don't think it was a Nebraska album. I don't think he's been listening to this one.
Then he played Johnny 99, a song about an unemployed auto worker who turns to murder. Subtle? No. Effective? Absolutely. Bruce wasn't done. In later interviews, he made his position crystal clear.
There's people going hungry. There's old folks whose social security checks don't get them through the month. There's people who've been hit by unemployment. There's people who the trickle-down theory of economics ain't trickling down to.
He was calling out Reagan's policies directly, the exact opposite of what Reagan thought Born in the U.S.A. represented. But here's the thing, Bruce wouldn't endorse Reagan's opponent either. He refused to take the bait and stayed out of partisan politics. The misunderstanding was the point. He wanted people to wrestle with what patriotism actually meant. Years later, Bruce explained exactly how he pulled it off.
People working, you work in war. What is it good for? That was pretty direct, and that was very understood. That's so you've got to get it in the chorus.
He's comparing his song to War by Edwin Starr. That one nobody misunderstood because the message was right there in the hook. But Bruce wanted something more dangerous. He buried the protest in verses most people ignored, then let the chorus do its magic. And it worked so well that decades later, the 2023 film Air made a joke about Jason Bateman's character realizing he'd been singing it enthusiastically with completely the wrong idea. Bruce didn't fool the world by accident. He wrote a song so catchy that people couldn't help but sing along, and with a gut punch buried inside about what patriotism really means. If you want more stories about music's biggest moments, hit subscribe.